The clock struck midnight, and the town of Garrison Hollow fell silent. It wasn't the quiet of peace, but the uneasy stillness of a town that knew better than to stir at this hour. Mia ignored the warnings though. After all, she was new here, and the stories of the midnight shadow sounded like nothing more than small-town superstition. The library had been her refuge for the past week. She was determined to finish her research for her anthropology paper, and the quiet of the abandoned second floor provided the perfect solitude. Tonight, however, the silence felt heavier, almost alive. The air grew cold, and the fluorescent lights flickered. Mia glanced up, her breath visible in the sudden chill. "Old wiring," she muttered, trying to dismiss the unease creeping up her spine. But then she heard it, a soft shuffle, like feet dragging across the carpet. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer. Her eyes scanned the rows of shelves, but nothing moved. Still, the feeling of being watched was undeniable. She gathered her belongings, deciding that her work could wait until morning. As she descended the creaking stairs, the air felt thicker, oppressive. Shadows danced on the walls, though the light was steady. She quickened her pace, her footsteps echoing loudly in the empty building. At the bottom of the stairs, the front door stood ajar. She could have sworn she'd locked it when she arrived. A cold gust blew through, carrying with it the faint scent of decay. She froze. There, just outside the door, stood a figure. It was tall and impossibly thin, its limbs too long, its head cocked unnaturally to one side. It didn't move, yet Mia felt its gaze pierce through her. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice barely more than a whisper. The figure stepped forward, the movement jerky, as if it were being pulled by invisible strings. Its face came into the light, and Mia wished it hadn't. Hollow eyes stared from deep sockets, and its mouth stretched into a grin far too wide for its face. She stumbled back, her heart pounding. The creature raised one elongated arm, pointing directly at her. The whispers began then, low and guttural, filling her mind with incoherent words. Her hands flew to her ears, but it was no use. The voices weren't coming from outside, they were inside her head. Mia turned and ran, her pulse racing as she darted through the library's labyrinth of shelves. The whispers grew louder, the sound of footsteps. No, something heavier, pursuing her. She glanced back and saw the creature gliding after her, its movements fluid now, like water spilling across the floor. She burst into the archival room and slammed the door shut. The lock clicked into place, but she knew it wouldn't hold. The creature didn't seem like it needed to obey physical laws. The room was pitch black except for the faint glow of her phone's flashlight. Her hands shook as she fumbled to call for help, but the screen only displayed static. The whispers stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. Her breathing was loud in the stillness, but then, she realized, it wasn't just her breathing. Something else was in the room. The flashlight beam trembled as she swung it around. It caught the edge of a shadow, but it wasn't on the wall. It stood in the center of the room, a mass of writhing darkness. The grin appeared first, wide and gleaming. The hollow eyes followed, locking onto hers. It lunged, and Mia screamed, ducking just as a cold wind rushed over her. She scrambled toward the back of the room, finding herself cornered. Her flashlight flickered, and the creature loomed closer, its grin stretching even wider. In a desperate move, Mia grabbed an old, heavy book from the shelf and hurled it at the creature. It passed through the shadow, striking the wall with a thud, but the entity paused. For a moment it wavered, its form flickering like a bad signal. Her eyes darted to the shelves. Maybe, just maybe, the books, ancient and laced with forgotten knowledge, held some power. She grabbed another and read the Latin inscription aloud, her voice shaking but growing stronger. The shadow shrieked, a sound that reverberated through her skull. Its form twisted, contorted, and began to dissolve into the air. The whispers turned to anguished wails as it faded entirely, leaving only silence. Mia didn't waste a second. She fled the library, the cold night air biting her face. She didn't stop running until she was inside her apartment. Every light turned on, the doors bolted shut. The next morning, she returned to the library. The front door was intact, the inside undisturbed. The archival room looked as though no one had been there in years, dust covering every surface. The book she'd thrown was back on the shelf, its spine pristine. Mia didn't know what she'd encountered that night, but the stories of the midnight shadow no longer felt like superstition. She packed her things and left Garrison Hollow that very day. As her car disappeared down the road, the shadow watched from the library's window, waiting for the next midnight visitor.